interview Riyad. Okay. First of all, Riyad, I wanted to ask you, from that time before the war, what memories does it evoke? What was Lebanon like?
I would like to start. When did I know your father?
Please.
And the era we lived in those ways. I don't know exactly when
I can tell you.
when we met.
I will jog your memory.
61.
In 61, something like this, even a bit before. Your brother was my university friend. We met at Uncle Sam's once.
Maybe you are right.
Then in London, when I went, and I was looking for you, and you were just coming out with Hazem Mushtaq and
Yes,
others.
yes.
And I saw you ahead of me, Riyadh, and we went into the Veraswami restaurant.
An Indian restaurant, very famous Indian restaurant in London. Yes. No, but I'm trying. I don't know exactly when I met Waddah. And this is, I remember it now because you mentioned it, but it's completely vague now. Anyway, but that was in early 60s, 1961 to be exact. By then I finished, I went to England and came back after my studies, and I worked in journalism. Okay. Waddah was then back. I don't know what was he doing.
I was doing layout designs for An-Nahar.
I was working for Al-Nahar as a journalist. Waddah was in the design and art business, you see. Yeah, we became friends. For many reasons, yani. We are nearly the same generation. I'm older by 1 or 2 years, I think. And now in the late in the early 21st century, yani, nearly now 60 years ago or 70 years ago, Beirut was something different from what is today. Awal شيء we were closer to each other as a group, as a friends, that I think anybody like in this generation is closer. Yani, the type of friendship, the liaison between friends were different. That's one thing. He used to work in and every in the early 60s, it was the spring, although this word has been spoiled recently in the vocabulary of politics. It was really like a fertile land who all of a sudden erupted, you see, with a lot of ideas. Of course, we were young, we were eager, but I don't think neither me nor Waddah wanted to change the world. We didn't have that ambition, at least I didn't have that ambition. I wanted to be a good journalist, I want to create scoops, I want to be known, so did Waddah. I and Waddah went into a project, but nobody knows about it now, I think. We established the first gallery in Beirut, in a place in Ramla al-Bayda.
Yeah.
That was in 1974, I think.
74.
Called Portico. We paid the rent and we did what we never used it. Because immediately after that, the war erupted and I had to leave to London and he had to go somewhere. I don't know where did he go. Yani, and I think that was our first project together. Of course, we had a lot of common friends. And who are these common friends? There were poets, writers, artists, that kind of people. We didn't know any people in power or in and I and Waddah became, sort of chums, as the saying goes. Waddah started meddling. You see, your father has a very good initiative, but with bad results. He get encouraged, he volunteered to do things. Nobody asked him to volunteer to do it. And then he fails to do them because he doesn't have the time. For all the time, don't tell him that you can do this or that. You don't have to do. Anyway, but that landed us in trouble many times. Anyway, to make, in those days, there was something, Beirut invented something new in those days. Is the cafe society. Cafe society is not like the one you see in cinema with what's the name of that film, Italian film, La Dolce Vita. The cafe society here is built on mainly on intellectuals, on cultured people who attend the cafe. You see, artists, writers, journalists, minor politicians, you see, who came, ambitious actors, that sort of thing. And these cafes were spread in one street, Al-Hamra, from what used to be Al-Nahar, now at the beginning of Al-Hamra, with a cafe called Café de la Paix. No, sorry,
Express.
لا قبل Express.
Yeah.
Not Express later came.
Horse.
لا
No.
تحت النهار.
Yeah.
Uh,
Under النهار, exactly.
Sorry, did I miss with it? You see, when you get old, Alzheimer starts creeping, and the first thing is you forget names. I have a problem. This is a slideshow. I have a problem that when any film I see on television, I know the actors, but I never remember the name. And I can't go to bed without remembering the name. You see, I used to have a friend, Munir Shama'a, the late Munir Shama'a, a very good friend of mine. He used to call me at 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, "Are you watching this film?" I said, "Yes." "What's the name of the actor?" I said, "I don't know. And I can't go to bed unless you tell me what's the name." You see, so this is anyway. This is a sideshow, as I thought. But in this society, what I call the cafe society, maybe it's a pejorative name, but it is. So we used to congregate. There, among the characters I and Waddah got to know well and lived with were two poets, Tawfiq Sayegh and Yusuf al-Khal. And there were other poets, of course, but they were more or less as a mentors, at least for me. Tawfiq was a very close friend of mine, and it's another story. Yusuf al-Khal is like a doyen. He was like a big patriarch, and we were little church boys, you see. He is the Yusuf al-Khal created or started a magazine called Shahr, Poetry, which revolutionized the concept of Arabic poetry from the traditional to the modern. And he translated a lot of American and English poets, etc. I remember in the context of this relationship, Yusuf al-Khal gave me an advice. And Yusuf al-Khal was an art connoisseur. he was married to a good famous artist called Helen Khal. I cannot appreciate how good or bad it is. I know she is good, but maybe Waddah. He started a gallery called Gallery One, somewhere in the Batrakia area. I don't know whether this happened. This has happened after we came, before we went to London, I think. I was then in London.
69.
I don't know, 69 maybe. Anyway, he told me one thing. He said, he introduced me to look at art differently. He said, if you have 10 pounds in your pocket and you see an art, a piece of art, buy it. Because it's 10 pounds now, it's 1,000 pounds later. Without me even asking who is the artist. I kept this in mind, in the back of my mind. Yusuf Khan made galleries, he went up and down and Talegi. When I went back to London, maybe because of the London atmosphere, because of the being a great cultural city, because there are so many galleries, you see. You know, I got hooked on, and I thought I had an eye on to look at art differently from a layman's point of view. But then I started trying to collect. Waddah gave me an advice, and you have to decide what do you want to. Not every piece of art you see, you want to buy, you buy. Nothing to do with the one before it or after it. You must have a theme. And he helped me in building that theme. He introduced me to major artists, Shafi Aboud, I don't know what, and a number of great Iraqis, Ziya Al-Azzawi. Anyway, Adam Hnain, okay. By then Waddah had a gallery in Paris, Gallery Paris. I was still in London. From there on, you know, I got to be associated with being a small, very small art appreciator, not collector. Okay? With the little money I had, I managed to build up an interesting collection, which drives me to put it back to this collection was the origin of putting Arab art in European markets. I was the first man who convinced Sotheby to put price on Arab art. Arab art had never had a price, you see. And from there on, you know, I got into the map of having some artworks, and I went to auctions and that sort of thing. So Waddah was behind all this. That's the art side of the poetic side, and the other. So Waddah promised so many artists to do their covers. He never did any of them, you see. But that's beside the point.
Except you.
This is a good idea. We did together a poetry book. I wish I had a copy of it. I don't have any more.
I have, but I haven't found it yet, but I will find it.
Very interesting. You see, the theme of the book was, I told you about this poet, Tawfiq Sahir, was a close friend of me and Waddah. The man died or committed suicide in America. This is a long story. But I wrote a small poetry book called In Search of Tawfiq Sahir, Al-Baht an Tawfiq Sahir. So Waddah designed the whole thing. And it was a very original design. It's like a notebook, school notebook.
Sketches.
Anyway, this book, unfortunately, when it was printed, the war had started in Lebanon, and the printing press was damaged. So the book was never, except few copies I managed to get later on. The book was never in the market. We never purchased it. But it's an interesting. I collaborated with Waddah in many projects, in many, beside and being a friend. We used to eat and sleep together, and all that sort of thing, you see. And we had common friends, and you see. He was a great womanizer for your father. I was a failure. But I used to know all his girlfriends. The other side of the story, you see, the 60s were like a gold mine waiting to be discovered. Anyway, the educational system in those days were superior to any other educational system in the Arab world, including what's happening now. And when you say somebody graduated from the AUB, it means he's a cultured man. You see, he knows about things. Anyway, now if you have a university degree, you can't read one single sentence in Arabic or English. Anyway, maybe, I don't know how relevant it is, but one of the interesting episodes I and Waddah had, we had a contract to do diaries for Qatar. It was a very lucrative contract. Waddah was a designer, and the war fell in Lebanon, printing stopped. You can't go from one street to the other. And we were cornered by delivery date, that we have to deliver at a certain time. Then it was, I don't know, August, September, and we had very short time. No printing press even in Lebanon can deliver on time. If you don't deliver, you lose the money. Very
Singapore came.
Singapore, I don't know who recommended Singapore. We heard of it that it is, the greatest quick. You used to say that if you go to Hong Kong or Singapore, you can tailor a suit in 24 hours. But also you can print a book, an encyclopedia, in 24 hours. They were so efficient. Anyway, we decided to go to Singapore. We didn't have any money, no bank. We used to have a friend who had a travel agency. His name is Mike Bahadarian. Still alive, he's a very nice man. And we said, can you lend us money? Traveler checks, all agencies have travel checks, you don't have to go to a bank. So how much do you want? I said something $3,000 or something. He gave us 3 checks, each check for $1,000. Anyway, I said, we went to Singapore. Now, Waddah has an Iraqi passport. I have a Syrian passport. Our third colleague, Abdulghani Marou, had a Lebanese passport. I said, okay. I don't know now, but Singapore airport like a football ground. Huge queues. Anyway, we chose one of the queues. Singapore needed no visa. There was no restriction or anything. Abdulghani Marou was on the start. I was the second, Waddah was behind me. Abdulghani Marou went with the Lebanese passport, tuck, came to my passport. In those days, the Syrian passport does not write all countries allowed to serve. They have to specify each and every country.
Same
So when I came to the immigration officer, he looked at it, he said, Singapore is not on the list of your passport, so you can't go. Please step outside the queue. Waddah behind me, we stepped together. Meanwhile, Abdul was already inside. I worried, what's happening to us? Maybe we're caught or something. What's the problem? I said, Waddah, this is... Ali, come straight. We went to the bathroom. He took his one of his pens and he wrote in the passport Singapore. And he said, let's queue in a different queue now, with a different immigration. We went into the other queue. He stamped the passport. We went in. It was a great coup in those days. Yeah. But because Singapore was at the end of the earth. We're coming from Beirut. We can't go back. We have to print. We have to do other. We went to the printing press. Do you have money? He said, no. There is no checks for $1,000. They are not illegal. Oh my God. So he called the police. The police came and said, from where did you get this check? From Beirut, from so-and-so. They had to call Bank of America to verify the checks. That's a nice story. By the end of the day, we did the printing, we got our contract, and we went back. And then after that, I went to Singapore 3 or 4 times. It's a lovely place. I advise you to go there if you for a holiday. It's the only country that will fine you if you are chewing gum. No, chewing gum is illegal. You see? And if they caught you smoking, also the fine is very, very heavy. It's anyway, we were so going back to the Beirut. You see, compared today, I mean, I didn't know until I was old enough, I think, who is my friend, is a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist. You see. Now, unfortunately, all measures are based on this criteria. We were a very healthy generation in this area. I think the new generation is sick with this epidemic of sectarianism and classifying people according to their religion, not according to their talent or achievements or whatever it is. Anyway, I think I was lucky. Waddah also was lucky in living in Beirut in those days. And the area, we have a huge area of friends of all sorts, and poets, artists, as I said, journalists, and we are part of all this. There was a poetry session in the evening. There was a theater next day. There was a lecture of sort like the other day. So it was really a very rich.
Bubbling.
All this stopped by 1975 when the war erupted, 76, and everybody was dispersed. I emigrated to England, you see, and Waddah went to Paris, and then he went to, I don't know, that's in general. If you have a specific question, ask me.
Yes, now that you were saying that you exiled to you exiled to London, how did it affect your life trajectory? That was the war when it erupted. How did it affect you personally?
Well, when the war erupted, I was married. My late wife, who died 6 years ago, 7 years ago, of cancer. I had a son, Najib, who was born in 72. We went to England in 75. He was 3 years old, less than 3 years old. Okay? In England, I had my own different projects. Most of them failed. I earned my living by writing to the newspapers. I have few projects, and I raised my family there. I had a very good time there. And now I say it publicly, one of my greatest, I did many mistakes in my life. Some of them were very grand mistakes, some of them were little grand péché. So one of my greatest mistakes is that I came back to London in 1991, out of nothing, out of illusion that Beirut is still the Beirut I knew, which was totally wrong. I risked everything and came back to Beirut purely out of nostalgia. But when I came back to Beirut, they were not the same cafes, they were not the same men, they were not the same people. It was different press even. And I used to tell my friends in London, what are you going to do in Beirut? I said, I have a basket of eggs. Either they crash and we make an omelette, or they produce little chicks. Unfortunately, my basket cracked. You see, even the omelette is not edible. You see, so, Beirut had Beirut in the 60s. I can speak on myself. I don't know about Waddah. Had a lot of influence on me. Like you see, like somebody in love with a woman 30 years ago. You see, and then he remembers after 30 years that he is still in love with this woman. He tries to go back to her. He finds three things: that she is no more beautiful as she was 20, 30 years ago, that she is married and has grandchildren, and she doesn't love him anymore. But that's what happened with me with Beirut. You see? Now I'm too old to do a third immigration effort, you see? So I stick to Beirut. That's but 10 years of Beirut life was very influential and very basic in creating something that never, what do you call وهج, a glow of reputations, of creativity, and even the artists of the 60s are different from the artists of today. They used to sell for peanuts, now they sell for millions. It's another story. Because who are buying art today in Arab art don't know anything about art. They wanted to buy, to fill in the walls, and to show their money. One of the interesting things about art, also I have a very interesting story. I used to have a friend, I mentioned, very close friend of mine, called Munir Shamma'a. He was a physician, and he was my neighbor. He had some money, and he said that he wanted to invest in art. He wanted me to go with him to view what kind of art. He used to buy haphazardly. He said somebody advised me to buy Scottish art by Scottish artists. Okay. Don't ask me why. While we are looking for galleries, I saw a gallery, I don't know. I used to have its name. I peeped into the gallery. It was a huge place. Who was there? Matisse, Van Gogh, Modigliani. Oh. I thought so I was amazed. I went in. Beauty. All the classical artists you've heard of. And then I've noticed something, that all the paintings were signed and dated from behind. I said, what is this? He said, this is a special art fair where we recreate, produce old classical works for people to buy and hang in their walls, pretend that they are the genuine one. I said, who buys these? He said, those who have the original piece. I know a friend of mine, Waddah M.A, he has a Matisse, or I don't know what, Renoir or whatever it is.
And Renoir.
It is in the originals are in the bank vaults. And he has, but if you go to his house, you don't know what the difference whether the original or not. But this shows you, see, that appreciating art has a different concepts and different.
At that time, people that collected art were, middle class professionals who.
Now who collect art really, they should be a millionaire, because when you're going to the auction, you go to bid not because you like the artist, because somebody have told you about it, or because it is, I was always talked to Allah, and I don't believe that such an artist is so expensive. For me, I wouldn't pay a penny for it, but it's not me. But anyway, going back to Beirut, you see, Beirut is like I always blame Beirut for my misfortunes, in a sense. As I said,
but
you are in love with a woman who betrays you all the time, and you know that she is betraying you, yet you accept it. And I always make this comparison.
but you have in Beirut, you have left made till now your publishing house, and your publishing house, although you consider that you have failed, etc., but how many titles have you published?
I started, listen, this is another a good angle maybe for Teymur. I went into publishing. You see, I was kicked out of journalism. This is the start. Nobody wanted to publish me anymore, mainly for political reasons. They didn't like my ideas, they didn't like the way I... So anyway, and journalism, there's a lot of jealousy between journalists and editors and this. So when I didn't have I didn't have any means to carry on writing and working as a journalist and getting paid for what I write, I went into publishing for one reason or two reasons. I can go into it, it doesn't cost much money to start. And the other thing is I love books. I always lived with books. 30 years ago now, I established this company where I publish books. And I started with something novel those days, that I only published for those authors who never been published before. You see? And so I had all the underground writers who were refused by other publishers for many reasons. Anyway, and then we came, the famous one came later, but now we started. I'm stuck to publishing because I don't know now any other profession. You see, I always dreamt of doing two things: either being a hotel manager, because I like the idea of being a hotel manager, where everything is under the service, room service, everything you can do. You live in the hotel, everything is under your command. You see? Or being married to a rich woman who had a supermarket. And the idea of a supermarket is you can stand behind the till and cash the money at the end of the day. And then anything you want to buy, it's all on the shelves. And this is the fantasy of somebody like me. Anyway, I am in publishing, and I have been publishing for 30 years this year. It's ups and downs. We made money, we lost money, etc. We quarreled. Now, after my illness, my wife, Fatma, is in charge, who has never been, and Fatma didn't know me in the area I was talking about. So, I'm reluctantly still in publishing. When I introduce myself, I say I'm a retired journalist. That's now my title, a retired journalist. Although I authored 32 books. I have 32 books. And I'm writing now 2 books. But none of them is going to appear because of my slowness. But that's, shoot, ask me anything you want because you have to jolt my memory. All I know, I've told you.
I have one question that comes to mind that we were walking the other day with the crew in the streets and we saw a graffiti in the walls that said, "Before I die, I want Lebanon to be," and 3 dots. What would you like Lebanon to be?
في بالشوارع حاطين
جرافيتي
كاتبينها.
واحد كاتب before I die I would like Lebanon to be ترك فراغ. أنت what would you like Lebanon to be?
I like this crossword puzzle. What I'd like it to be needs more than word. But I'll say it in a. I'd like Beirut to go back. If there is a time machine, you get into this time machine and go back to the 1960s. The 60s were the golden era of Lebanon as a cultured, civilized, creative country or place.
Shukran, Riad. And also, I was thinking, is there any event like the Baalbek Festival that you can recall from that time?
You see, I was never, to be honest, I'm a lazy traveler. I never go, and I don't, you see, I belong to the classical era, even in music. And everybody, I'm going to say something very outrageous. I'm one of the few who don't like Fairuz or the Rahmani. I never liked them. They never, I don't like their kind of poetry. I belong to the era of the classical era, the Egyptian, Kulthum, Muhammad Abdul Wahab, Muhammad Abdul Muttalib, that I don't recall any Lebanese artist, singer. I listen, but I'm not going to go out of my way and climb 200 feet of mountains to listen to somebody. I went once out of curiosity at the beginning. I forgot what I went once to Baalbek. And the repetition, then there is these festivals increase the Lebanese megalomania. You see, there is enough conceit in Lebanon that will fill the whole oceans, and every Lebanese thinks he's the chosen. I think Lebanon is not the chosen country, and the Jews believe in that. The Lebanese now outbid the Israelis that they are the chosen country. They are not the chosen country. They are they are a failed country to start with. Unfortunately, this situation. But when I say to go back to the 60s, is to go back to where there are values, when there are initiative, when there are real talents, when you are appreciated for what you have, not from who is behind you. These are ideal sentiments. But this is in answer to your that's why you see I never make any interviews till and I'm not and I refuse all television appearances. You see, so one of the television asked me for an interview. I excused myself. I said, no, thank you, I can't do it. He said, why? He said, because I stammer. And then, I like the idea. He said, it's the first apology that could be convincing, but I know you are not. Because the quantity of mediocre talks, you see, and bullshitting you see on television, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I like cinema. I go to a lot of cinemas, and the book I can't read. If there is a film, I go and see. And I have 1,000 DVDs. Every new one, I buy one. If you want to take to Spain, come and collect from my collection. It's very expensive. $1 each DVD.
And I was wondering, to pick up your mind, where do you think Lebanon is going from now, seeing that it's surrounded by all these problems and all the... Where do you see Lebanon going?
Lebanon does not control its destiny. Somebody else controls its Lebanese destiny. Because the Lebanese people have surrendered their destiny to outside power. They always wanted somebody from outside to push them. If you have a child in school and you want him to add his grade, you don't tell him to go and study more. You ask for a politician to talk to the headmaster to raise the grade of your children. They always wanted somebody to help.
Thank you very much, Riyad.
I hope whatever left of this interview will help your degree. I don't care about that.
It was very good. It was very, very good.
I will go get my camera because I want to take a portrait of you here in your desk.
اوكي صارت الساعة 3 فطور اجت الكهرباء؟
لا.
The pictures are all right, Roger?
Very good.
Do I look handsome? Do I get would I get any calls from the student of your college later on
Definitely.
to be introduced?
Of course.